Hey guys, what's up? It's James Kelly. Welcome back to James's Kitchen Studio. I've got another awesome dinner planned for tonight and I thought I'd share it with you. I'm going to make some green Thai curry tonight, a little reminiscent of my time in Thailand. And I'm going to make the green curry from scratch. You get to see how to make that exactly the way the Thais make it, because I've had lessons actually while I was in Thailand just to make sure I know how to make it authentically, even though I've been making it for a while. And I'm going to make some pineapple and kale quinoa with some Thai flavors in there, like Thai basil in there. And that's going to be my sort of starch on the side of the coconut milk based green curry. So I'm looking forward to that, and let's go. So I'm going to start off with putting on the quinoa. So for that, I'm going to grab my rice cooker. I always do my quinoa in my rice cooker because it turns out flawless every time. And I don't have to worry about any burning or anything like that, or how long it's going to take. It just does its thing. So basically plug this thing in. I don't need the vegetable attachment. And I'll just grab a cup. Any size cup will do. It doesn't really matter. You just make as much quinoa as you want. And what I do is I pour the quinoa into the cup right in the rice cooker, because these little things get everywhere. These little quinoa seeds. Alright. So I've got a cup full there, and I'm just going to dump that in there. Now, you need some water, of course. So I'm going to take some of my filtered water and basically put in about twice as much water as you're going to put in quinoa. So I put in 1 scoop of quinoa, about 2 scoops of water, just double it. And this can go on right away. Put the button down, put the lid on, and then we're pretty much set for the quinoa. So that's going to be going on real nice and easy and slow. And I've got some of this chopped kale here, and I'm just going to put this into the frying pan, pretty much ready to go whenever I want. And then I'm going to chop up some pineapple in a little bit, put that in. But next I want to start doing the green Thai curry, because that's probably what's going to take the most time. So I'm going to grab my small size Vitamix container here to make the green Thai curry in, because it's really important that it gets blended up really well. And I've got some really nice green basil here. You just put some of like your softer ingredients on the bottom. So this, actually, you know what? Since there's quite a bit of it, I'm just going to chop it a bit. I might even put it in stages, I think. So for my green Thai curry, I've got some kaffir lime leaves. These are really hard to find, it seems. But you could probably go to an Asian grocery store. And same thing with the Thai basil. You might not find it. Don't substitute regular basil for Thai basil. It's not the same thing as that Italian sweet basil. Alright, I've got some shallots. I've got some garlic. And put in a little bit more of my soft ingredients here. Alright. Got a piece of ginger as well as a piece of galangal. Now these things look pretty close to the same, so I'm not sure if you know what the difference is between all of these ingredients, but when you're looking at these two things, these are actually 2 different kinds of ginger. Regular ginger, most people know this ginger anyways, it's regular ginger. It's actually the same thing as old ginger or yellow ginger. And galangal is the same thing as new ginger or white ginger, but sometimes they sell new ginger as this kind of stuff. It's not galangal, but it's just really young. That's not the same thing. Galangal is really hard. When you're cutting it, it almost feels like you're cutting like a piece of wood. So like I have to like press on my knife just to cut it. And it smells totally different than regular ginger, but it's still got a super, super, super pungent aroma. And this stuff is actually gonna take a pretty good beating in a blender. So you're gonna want a really, really good blender to be able to process this. And if you don't have a Vitamix or something that's like a really, really strong blender, hopefully maybe you have like a good food processor. And if not, then you just have to substitute by putting it on for a lot of extra time. So throw some of that in there. And then see how much easier it is to chop this ginger. This is the regular stuff. And notice how I didn't peel it neither. That's because I'm using my Vitamix and it's just going to process the heck out of it anyways. So not really much point in spending my time doing all that. Next I've got lemongrass. I'm sure you know what lemongrass smells like. Super, super fresh. Just take the back of your knife and kind of bash down near the bulb or the root of the lemongrass. You can see I already cut off the top because it's so huge. All of the flavor is concentrated down in this lighter green or white part. By beating it like that, you can get out a little bit of anger if you have anger issues. But more importantly, it releases all the flavor. And this part I'm not going to throw out. It's still really good. I'll use it another day. But I'm going to throw all of this lemongrass in here. Okay, next I've got some green chilies. We're making green curry, so of course you're going to want to use primarily green ingredients. And you use red green chilies as opposed to, you use green ones as opposed to red ones. Now normally you'd buy those little bird chilies. They're like those tiny, tiny little chilies. Probably look like they're about half the size of this almost and really thin. And those things are super hot. But when I buy them in the grocery store, they come in a pack of like 100 at a time. And I can't just pick out like 10 of them that I would need to make this. So I bought these Serrano chilies instead. And it'll still impart a lot of heat and mostly the same flavor anyways as well. So you can cut your pepper like that and put it in. And if you put it in with the seeds, that's going to of course make it hotter. And if you don't want the seeds, then just kind of roll the pepper in your hand like this. And that kind of like loosens the seeds and it'll start to break apart like it just did. And then you can cut it again. And then just give it a rinse. I know, all your seeds are gone. That's like an easier way to take out the seeds in your pepper. And you don't necessarily want to like scrape your thumb or anything along there. If you're ever scraping something, use a knife. Because if you use your thumb, you get all this fiery hotness from the pepper right in that part of the hot flesh and the seeds. And it's gonna get into your under your nails, and that'll really hurt you for probably a few hours. So don't do that. You can use your fingers if you need to move them out, but just don't like scrape it with your fingernail. Alright, so I've got 3 pretty big sized chilies. Whoa, I can like tell all of the fumes are coming up from that even. Alright, so we're going to process this with some water and give it some time, and then I'm going to put a few more ingredients in there. Woo! All of that chili, when I put it in the water, in warm water, they just came up in the steam. Whew, crazy. Okay. Alright, so this thing's done now. It's done its first set of tasks anyways, and you can see that it's really, really pureed all of this lovely flavors together. But I'm not quite done yet. It smells really, really, really good. Okay, so I'm not done yet because I need to put in a few more things. You know your cilantro or coriander, call it whatever you want. Normally you sometimes throw out the stems. I mean, a lot of people throw out the stems. I usually don't throw the stems. I use them for things like juicing or flavoring different things like stocks or whatever. I'm just going to chop off the stems, and I've already washed them. So I'm just going to plop those things into here as well. And use the rest of this for garnish. Of course, I'm not going to use all of the rest of that. That was actually 2 whole bunches of cilantro, and I just used both of them because I have 2 of them, and I'm probably not going to do too much else with the stems. The other thing you could do, if you want to add like a lot of like substance, you can use like a spinach bunch like this, and just take off the stems from a spinach bunch too. If you're not going to use them for very much else, then hey, don't waste them. Especially if you have an opportunity like this to use them. Put them in there. Alright, so next, we just have a few extra things. Some salt. I'm going to put in maybe like a big teaspoon of salt to taste. You can always put in more salt anyways afterwards. About the same amount of cumin, about a teaspoon. And same thing with ground coriander. And I don't really have a lot of coriander left. Got this one, it's lasting me quite a long time. And it's all done now. And then we've got black pepper. Freshly cracked black pepper, of course. Alright. Oops. So now I'm going to just put a little bit more water in here, make sure that it all blends together and so those things go down. Take my lid and give it another go on the puree setting and finish it off. Alright, mission complete. Everything's done now. You should be able to certainly taste it for one thing. Make sure that it tastes good. It's nice and warm from being blended so much. Tastes really, really, really good. Of course it should. To your liking though. If you want to put in something that you can add, go for it. And if you don't have all of those ingredients, sometimes you can find other substitutes. Like, I know one thing that I keep is this ground dried kaffir lime leaf. And the reason why I brought a bunch of this back from Thailand when I went there is because it's actually pretty hard to find fresh kaffir lime leaves around the US, Canada, or wherever you are, the UK. Probably somewhere that they speak English, or else you speak English. Otherwise you're just watching this and I don't know what you're doing if you don't speak English. Hopefully you're just following along, nodding your head. Oh, that looks good. Okay, so this needs to be cooked down a little bit. And I'm going to do that in the same wok that I'm going to make the green curry in. Just pour all of that in here. Get out the other goodness. Alright, so I'll let that pretty much simmer and then turn it down just to let it reduce, get some of the water out of it that I put in there to help blend it all together and let those flavors marinate together. And that'll probably take about 5 to 10 minutes, probably closer to 10 minutes if you're not rushing it, which is always good. Go slow, be easy. And the other thing that's really nice is you can see I made quite a lot of it. I'm not going to use all of that to eat tonight for one person. What I'm going to do is I'll probably use a little bit in the quinoa, the pineapple kale quinoa, just to give it some of that Thai flavor. But the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put some aside in a bowl, and I'll just be able to use it for whatever the rest of the week. And I guess you could always freeze it if you wanted to just freeze it as well. So that's another good option. So I'll let that start to simmer and then reduce over about 10 minutes. Right. So while we're waiting for the green curry to simmer down now a little bit, there's a couple things that I could do. One, I can start the pineapple and then the kale. And also, my quinoa is done. So I'm just going to unplug the quinoa or stop it, whatever you've got to do. Or just make sure that it's not going to burn if your quinoa is done at this point. You can always prepare it ahead of time too, because it's going to be heated up. So to handle this pineapple, we're going to take off the hat, and you could save some of these leaves and use them for decoration. I've done that before. Like, they're really nice decoration on the plate, like 1, 2, 3 or something like that in the corner. It makes it look pretty sweet. So we'll keep that around. Maybe use it for something like that. Spin it around, cut off the bottom. This, I don't think you're going to want to use that part for any decoration, so just chuck it. And then what you want to do is basically just go down the side of the pineapple repeatedly like that. And don't worry about any of these little brown spots. That's just good fiber for you. And of course, I'm not going to use this full pineapple in my quinoa recipe. So I'm going to have some extra pineapple for a couple days, and I'm going to take that extra and make some nice like smoothies and shakes and stuff like that out of it. And maybe I can make some more quinoa, whatever, tomorrow if I want to make it more fresh, although, you know, it'll keep anyways. So I really don't need that much, is what I'm getting at. Out of this whole piece of pineapple, I'll probably just take off like maybe that amount. So we'll do like 2 slices, say. Maybe about like a thickness of a finger. And then the rest of that, you can just put it in some plastic wrap to keep it good for a little while. Alright. And then obviously into the fridge. Okay, not the best plastic wrap job I've ever done, but that'll do. So what we want to do with the pineapple slices is just basically kind of like dice them into something pretty small, whatever you're comfortable eating really, in the quinoa. So I'll probably slice it pretty thinly here first, in one direction, and then just kind of turn it and kind of go at it the other way. Right, so we're back at the stove now, and I've just turned off this green Thai curry because it's simmered down pretty well. I'm going to scrape around these edges that have dried off a little bit. Ideally, maybe they wouldn't do that. You don't really want them to do that a lot. And got my pineapple and kale here ready to go. Put a little bit of water in here, and I'm just going to fire up this burner. And I can use this actually, the same lid, to cover that up rather than starting a new one. And like I was saying, you can save this for quite a while. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm just going to pack a little bit of it up in here while that's starting. And leave more than enough in here probably to flavor my my green curry for tonight. So I put some of that into my fridge, and the water's pretty much evaporated right out of there. That's good. That means it's time to put a little bit of oil into it. Grab some of my safflower oil. I want to make sure it doesn't burn, so do it real quick. And then I'm just going to use the same spatula actually from the curry, and it's got a bunch of the curry spices on it going on. Just going to help give a little bit more flavor to this too. And you know, I just take a little bit like that, put it in there too. Alright, so this is pretty much like good to go now. You put the quinoa right in there. So again, like I was saying, my quinoa was finished. So this quinoa here is all done. I'm going to take it with a spoon and get it all into the frying pan. just mix this around. Really well. Your spatula. Maybe toss it a little bit. Flies everywhere, but I think you just kind of leave this on like pretty low and slow and let it go. So just kind of like toast the quinoa a little bit, take a teeny bit of the moisture out of it, and help it. Another really great thing that you can add into here is some coconut oil. Coconut oil is going to give it a really, really nice, again, Thai-inspired sort of flavor. And another thing that I've got way up into my cupboard is big coconut flakes, and I'm going to put some of those in actually toward the end. So now it's time to start the green curry, and you can see pretty much how much of the sauce I've got left in here. And I'm just going to add a little bit of water. And then I'm pretty much ready to put in my veggies. So again, I'm going to put in some of the harder things first, like the okra, the green beans, and the carrots. Those are going to take a little bit longer to cook, so I'll put those ones in first. So let me grab them. And it just depends how long, based on how thick you cut all this stuff too. You can kind of see how the moisture is starting to come out of this. Got some steam going on here. Just make sure that it's not going to burn, otherwise just keep it low and slow. And then this stuff, you want to add like enough water or coconut milk if you want to already at this point to help it cook. And I think that that's what it's looking like right now. I'll put in a little bit more water because it's going to evaporate anyways after all. And I'm going to put my lid back on there to help it steam up a little bit. And when that steam starts going, then it will probably have already been a couple minutes. We'll put in the rest of the veggies. Alright, so I'm back. I'm just turning this quinoa over, doing it a couple times here, waiting for this to get going. And you can see all that steam coming out of it now. It's definitely got tons in there. So I'm going to put in all those bamboo shoots and my yellow bell peppers. I'll just save those last little bits of these red chilies to go in right at the end. And then when it's in the bowl, even I'll put in some of the green basil leaves, green Thai basil leaves. And since this has been going for quite a while now, we'll just kick this up a couple notches with some of this salt. This is actually an organic vegetable salt from France, made by Bourget. It's called Trocomar. Usually comes in green containers. For some reason they just switched it to red. It's not the spicy one. They just switched the color. And a whole bunch of coconut oil. Coconut oil is really good. It's a non-animal saturated fat, which means it's really good for burning clean energy. So you can have this before you go for a workout or something. I'm having it for dinner, so I'm not going to be working out after this. But it makes it taste really, really yummy. Just get that like marinated in there. And then just some of these things going on. Coconut flakes. These are nice, good organic coconut flakes, again from Whole Foods. Let's do organic, apparently. And yeah, these things are really tasty. You could toast them if you wanted to beforehand. That would just be a little bit more work than I'm prepared to do. Put all the stuff away, and then just kind of stir all that together. And this thing's just doing its thing. Actually, I'm going to stir that together as well. So, you could turn up the heat a little bit on this thing. I turned it down to low. So let's get it just a little bit hotter, so that those coconut flakes do end up just toasting a little bit. And then I think we're done with the lid here. This is looking like it's pretty good. We've got lots of veggies in here. Definitely got a lot of bamboo shoots I put in the whole can, which is more than enough for me, but I'll have some leftovers. And the okra, most importantly, looked like it's pretty much mostly done now, which is good. So at this point, I want to do a couple things. I want to put in some cashews, maybe like a handful of cashews, maybe a little bit more than a handful. And some potato cashews. I like them. And you can put in these things a little bit later. I'm going to put in my coconut milk. And this is basically what's going to make your curry nice and runny. You can put into the bowl. I could really just like clean this bowl out and then serve it right in here. This is looking pretty good. As you move it around, it's got a little bit of brown in it now, so that bottom part of the pan is heating up the quinoa and the coconut really hot. So it's getting a teeny bit brown, and this is looking pretty nice. So I think I'm about done it basically. So I'm just gonna throw those red chilies in there, just to give a little bit of nice red color to it all. And there we go. This is pretty much done now. All you got to do is plate. What I'm going to do is plate some of this nice quinoa and kale. Let's just put it on one side of the plate here. It smells so good with the pineapple in it. Okay, let's just get a couple more pieces of kale to put on top of there. And then you can just tuck these in to make a nice little decoration too. This is what they would do in Thailand. They're so all about these sort of little things. And you can just make it look a little bit more covered up. Okay, so that's half done. To finish off this, I just take a little bit of lime and just zest it over here. Knock this thing off, just got some at the bottom. Now that's probably going to be amazing, and we'll just put maybe a few Thai basil leaves on top too, because Thai basil is just so good. Get my ladle out and I'll ladle some of this green curry with my coconut milk mixture. And I've not got it too thick because I didn't really put in too much coconut milk. You can kind of put in whatever amount you like. I don't like mine super duper runny. If you want to make it a little bit more authentic, it would make it pretty runny. But I'm not really into that. So I would say, as you can see, it's like really well coated, but not super runny. And for this, I'm going to take, again, some more Thai basil leaves. These are really good. And pop them in there. And then just take some green onions and cilantro. Don't want to put on too much, so that it's not really showing the actual curry either. It looks like money to me. Alright, there you have it. Another episode done. Cooking with James in James's Kitchen Studio. We've got green Thai curry and pineapple, kale, and even coconut Thai-inspired quinoa starch on the side of there. Looks amazing. I'm done this video now because I gotta dig into this.